Ade Shakoya here from Agile TV at the Agile Development and Better Software Conference in Orlando. And right now I am with Dan North.
Hey.
Keynote speaker at this event. So hi Dan, how you doing?
I'm very well, Ade. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. And the first thing that you'll notice that we both have the same accent, right?
Hello.
Yes, how you doing, sir?
And it's lovely visiting the colonies. I think it's great.
Yeah.
And you have a new, what's it? President, that's the word. Yeah.
A new one, it's the same
well,
one, right?
a newly elected. New re-elected. Fantastic.
President. Yeah, cool. Yeah. All right, so for all those people out there who are watching this right now who might not know you, who you are, can you just give us a quick introduction and a background to how you come to be here today?
Yeah, sure. So my name's Dan. I've been in IT probably for about 20 years, a little over 20 years.
So you started when you was about 5?
No, I'm just a lot older than you think. And I got into what I guess we now call the Agile part of the world around about 12 years ago or so, sort of early 2000s. Joined an organisation called ThoughtWorks, does kind of Agile software delivery, professional services, and spent about 8 years there, during which time I came up with an Agile method, I guess, an Agile approach called Behaviour Driven Development.
Okay.
And then, so I left there about 3 years ago and joined a trading firm who seemed to turn everything that I thought was true about rapid software development on its head, which I found deeply unsettling. It was a huge culture shock. And then I decided that the thing I needed to do was understand that. And so that's where this, my latest kind of, the stuff I've been talking about now has mostly come out of that last 3 year period. I've been speaking at conferences all around the place since about 2004. So and this is my second time at Better Software in Orlando. And I've been at a couple of Better Software conferences elsewhere as well. So always a good audience and a great learning experience. So that's why I'm back.
Definitely so. So let's start off first of all with your methodology, Behaviour Driven Development. Tell us a little bit more about how did you come up with it and what are the key principles underlying it? So
BDD started as a thought experiment. I was coaching teams doing TDD, and in fact I was speaking to Al Shalloway.
Okay.
He's an Agile consultant who again is speaking at this conference.
Yeah, we interviewed him through this series in Las Vegas as well.
Oh, there you go. So you know Al, and we were having this very conversation this morning. He said, I'm still running a lot of TDD classes, he says, and we get into this whole thing about like understanding tests and testing and all that kind of thing. And this was the same problem I was having. So as a thought experiment, or not a thought experiment, it was a real experiment. I decided I was going to do a TDD training without using the word test at all. Okay. So we're going to look at code, and the code is going to be examples, and the code examples have the examples of methods, and the methods have a name, and the name of the method is the thing that is the behaviour we're interested in. Okay. And what I found was a couple of things is, in each of the places where I would have used the word test, I was having to think how I was using that word.
Okay.
So whether it's an example or a specification or documentation or a validation or all of those other things that we tend to use this placeholder word for. But also it meant that we kind of that I took back the word test, so I could now use the word test only when I meant actual testing.
Fair enough.
Which opened up this whole domain of testing to me, which is just something I've been exploring and I find fascinating. So as a programmer, testing was just this thing that testers did. Whereas what I've discovered, looking more into it, is a huge rich domain. And so BDD as a method kind of grew out of that, and now it's become I guess really the thing I'm trying to get people to focus on these days is the conversations.
Okay.
So I was quite obsessive about the whole automation piece for quite a while, and I guess because that was where the gap was. And now we've gotten pretty good at automation, and it seems now that unfortunately that can get a bit cargo culty. Like as long as we're automating everything, we must be doing it right, and it's not. It's BDD. The core of BDD is the conversations. Okay. It's the interactions between your product owners, your stakeholders, your various different people, and the developers, and the testers, and the sysadmins, and the ops, and all of these different people. And BDD then provides a framework, if you like, for those to make sure you're having those conversations.
Cool. I mean, it's good to hear you bringing up the whole thing about conversations. With a number of clients that I have been working with and we're currently working with, we've had to have that, transition and helping them to understand that actually it's the conversations that give us the real value behind what we're actually doing. And it kind of goes back to looking at Agile as not just only a software and product development type of way of developing these things, but also looking at it as an interaction model, how we actually interact in order to get these end results. So, I see you smile around that. So I know you agree with that
very much so.
So I know you talk about team productivity, and I know you work with a lot of teams making them productive. In your experience, what would you say are the key elements that you find in the most productive type of teams?
So I'm going to challenge that question slightly.
Fair enough.
Because I don't actually talk about team productivity.
Okay.
What I talk about is effectiveness of teams. Productivity is an interestingly loaded word because it comes from producing, from a product. And so the idea, productivity is how many widgets per unit time am I generating or whatever, and a more productive product line is producing more widgets in a unit time. There's a misconception, I think, with software where we think what we're doing is producing software. What programmers do is produce software, and that's not actually the case. What programmers do is solve problems, and we solve problems by producing software. Okay. We use software in order to solve those problems. Now, the most effective programmers I know use the least amount of software to solve that problem. So arguably they're the least productive, right? So and for me, like a really effective team is, or an individual, a really effective group of people trying to solve a problem are the ones that can really understand the nature of the problem. What is it we're really trying to do here? And then to find the shortest path to having solved that.
Right, okay.
Yeah, so if you imagine any software at all is a liability. Software isn't an asset. We talk about software assets. Software isn't an asset. Software has a cost associated with writing it. It cost me time to write it. There's an opportunity cost, all the things I could have been doing while I was writing it.
True.
There's then, when I come to change software, there's a cost of understanding it. And if I've got a huge amount of software, that's a lot of understanding, a lot of stuff I don't know about.
Yep.
And then there's a cost of change, a cost of maintenance. So when I want to make it do a different thing, that's a new bunch of investment. So software is cost, right? And so where's the upside? Well, the upside is hopefully some kind of utility. So now the more of that utility I can get with the least amount of software, I win. If I can solve a business problem with no software, I won.
True.
Yeah, if I can solve a problem with a small amount of software, I'm doing okay. So so for me, effective teams are teams that can figure out the best alignment of a technology platform with a problem, for instance. So some problems are data transformation problems. I get a message in, I do some stuff, I emit a message. Or I get some data in and I do something and I carry out some commands or whatever. If I can make my technology stack be exactly that, it's very, very close to the solution space. Whereas if I only think in objects and everything's OO and everything has to be objects and interfaces and classes, then this thing that started off as a get some data, transform it, emit some data, becomes get some data, construct some objects, wire some objects together, get these objects doing things, now do some transformation, which is actually a rich interaction between a whole bunch of objects, and then finally get something out. And so you can get teams that are very good at that, but they're solving the wrong problem.
I get you.
Do you see what I mean?
I get you. And I have to say that's...
I want unproductive teams.
No, to me, I think what you just did there, you've given us a great reframe, which is, the focus shouldn't be on this thing called productivity. Like you said, sometimes they can end up producing the wrong thing. It's about being efficient. It's about making sure that we're delivering the right thing and also putting the right level of effort required to deliver that, and not actually just going out there and just delivering stuff and saying, hey, look what I produced.
Yeah, absolutely. You just named it there. It's the right amount of effort.
Yes.
There's an appropriate amount of effort. For some things, the appropriate amount of effort is loads.
Yeah.
Okay, and for some things it isn't. For life-critical systems, or for the tiny subset of a system that is the real critical part, spend loads of time on that. Really understand it. Really get it right. For all of the other stuff, you can probably get away with less. And it's getting that sense of appropriateness. And what I see with the more experienced teams and the more mature teams is they've figured out which, where they can kind of coast and where they really need to be focusing.
Yeah,
and that allows them to move forward faster.
Yeah, it's interesting that you should bring that up, because I'm finding that when working with teams, some of the problems in the teams becoming efficient, even though they're skillful people, is the level of uncertainty that's involved in software development and providing solutions and knowing where the balance lies. So are you able to speak to that, about how do people, or the problems that people face in regards to uncertainty, and how can they actually overcome those things?
So uncertainty is a rascal. So the problem is that as humans we're wired to want certainty. So to the extent that we will introduce a solution in a space even when we know that's wrong. So if faced with ambiguity, we want to just eliminate the ambiguity and come down on one side or another, even though we know we can't know.
True.
Yeah, and we overlay solutions on things. We've also got a habit of trying to see patterns where there aren't patterns.
True.
And there's all sorts of like neurological kind of phenomena that describe different ways in which these different cognitive biases, for instance, that Philippe was talking about in the keynote. Yeah. These are ways where we take uncertainty and inconclusive information or insufficient information and just overlay some other stuff to try and get to certainty. Yeah. And in a lot of situations, you can have a more broad set of options, if you like, or set of strategies you can use if you are prepared to live with that ambiguity. And it's a skill. It's hard, right? And the teams that I've seen that do this well practice it.
Okay.
They will deliberately move forward with maybe 2 or 3 competing strategies. Like, well, how are we going to solve this? Well, we could do the big thing where we kind of design it and argue about it, and it comes down to that. But all of that's hypothetical. Or we could roll forward with 3 completely different ideas concurrently and look for data, and eventually one of these things is going to be the obvious one. Or it's going to become obvious that it doesn't matter which one we pick. Toss a coin, we're done. Yeah. So, but when you exercise an option early, when you make a decision early, you're doing that typically with insufficient information. Okay. Like if you could hold back just a little bit, you may discover that you learn things as you go that mean, do you know what? Now I know this thing. Of course, I'm not going to do it that way.
Okay.
Yeah. And once you start understanding the power of that deferring the decisions, you start now thinking, instead of in terms of I'm making a series of decisions, I'm carrying out a series of experiments.
Right. Okay.
I'm going to try a bunch of things because the one thing I know is that I don't know. Yeah. Yeah. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to run a bunch of experiments, and there's no bad experiments. Like, an experiment that fails is still information. True. In fact, the only bad experiment is one where I don't actually learn anything. So I do this experiment, and however it comes out doesn't tell me anything. It's like that saying, there's no such thing as failure, only feedback. There's no failure, only feedback, which is only true if you set it up so that you can absorb that feedback. So, like, feedback has, yeah, you're absolutely right. An experiment has no value unless it gives you feedback, but feedback has no value unless you can action it. Of course. Otherwise, it's just data coming in. Of course. You know? So if you can get that set up, so you run this kind of series of experiments, and you just see delivery as an ongoing series of experiments, and as you learn stuff, you feed that back into your process. Be that change in your tooling, your methodology, your approach, your solution space, all of those things are up for grabs, and we don't like that. Our egos don't like that. If I say to you, are you using the right programming language? Why are you using Clojure? Why are you using Clojure? You want to have an answer to that. You're like, oh, well, because we looked at all these things, we evaluated all these things, and da-da-da-da. It's okay to say, I don't know, but for now it feels like a good fit. And maybe a little later I'll discover that it isn't a good fit, or I may discover that it's a great fit for this bit, but it's a different fit. It's not a great fit for this bit, so I'm going to use a different technology over here. Yeah. And that's allowed as well. So, I mean, I totally agree with you on all these points. But as we know, a lot of people are in organizations where the culture doesn't allow that. Allow people to be totally honest that, okay, right now I don't know why, but hey, I'm just testing it out. Yeah. How would you suggest that people deal with the culture in an organization that doesn't allow them to be able to openly say, hey, I don't know, but hey, we're just going to see where it goes, and we're going to try 3 different experiments and we'll see where it's landed, because management sometimes doesn't want to hear that, right? Right. And so there's a lovely Swedish phrase, when you're talking to farmers, use farmers' words. Fair enough. And what it means is, like, I want to get management buy-in for this. If I talk about it in the words that I've been talking to you as a developer about it, they're going to go, surely that's 3 times as expensive as doing this one thing. So instead, if I say to them, we are that running this experiment is a hedge, it's an investment. Okay, it's a very short investment. It's an insurance policy, and the cost of running these three things to discover which one of them empirically is the right one. And by the time we make that decision, we're already that far forward. Say I run this as a 3-week thing. I'm 3 weeks into all three of these things. Whichever one I choose, I'm already 3 weeks into. I don't have to start over. Yeah. So it's insurance. And in the same way they wouldn't think twice about getting buildings insurance. This is software insurance. So it's reframing that. So this isn't a waste of money. This is risk mitigation. This is the cost of how we make risk visible, and then how we manage that risk going forward.
No, that's a great piece.
And they look at that and they go, "Oh, okay, oh yeah, I get that. That makes sense."
No, I mean, it totally does, because coming from a personal investment background myself, so I understand options and hedging. So straight away, when you position it like that, it's like, okay,
why wouldn't I do that?
Exactly,
why wouldn't
I'll do that in an
so hang on a minute.
Why wouldn't I do it somewhere else?
Yeah, so you're about to write some really expensive software, and you're only going to try it one way, and you don't know where you're going yet.
And then we wonder why we have these multi-million-pound projects or dollar projects that don't work, and we're like, oops.
Hang on a minute, oops, yeah. Well, great case in point in the UK. I know a massive hat tip to a guy called Matt Wall, who's ex-lead architect at The Guardian, has just launched, or the UK government has just launched a new website called gov.uk.
Yes, I read the blog recently.
So gov.uk is an unbelievable triumph, right? So you've got mostly open source technologies, entirely sort of lean, agile, iterative delivery, very small team. The cost of getting from zero to the entire platform deployed that's doing like HMRC, so your tax returns, VAT, all of these government interactions is a rounding error on some of the other government IT projects. Do you know what I mean? It's peanuts. Yeah. It's I don't know what the actual numbers are, but it's not. To put it into contrast, there was a previous famously failed IT project that cost £12 billion. Which is like $12 billion, only much bigger, right? Yeah. and that rumbled on for years and years, and it's just been written off. It's just been decided it was a complete failure and stop. £12 billion. These guys have done it for, I don't think it's even millions. I think it's hundreds of thousands, and they've built an entire platform. So when you go about it in this way, you can get unbelievably effective way faster. And it's this ridiculous like win-win-win-win. Do you know what I mean? Like Definitely. It's less money, it's quicker, it's lower risk, it's all that stuff. But it's counterintuitive, and you're asking people to deal with uncertainty. And they say, "Oh, I don't want uncertainty. What I want is for you to spend £2 million doing a procurement process, and that will give me the illusion of absolute certainty." Great. Okay, how's that worked for you so far? No. Let's instead iteratively figure out this thing as we go forward, with the option, with the proviso that at any point you can just turn it off. Okay? If you don't think you're getting value from me doing this delivery, turn it off. You have that choice at any point. And it's a very empowering way to work.
It is, and you've shared some very valuable information. I'm sure the listeners out there will find it value just as much as I've taken great value. I mean, one of the things I like from coming to these events is rather than just being a speaker, is also speaking to other people and hearing what other people are doing and learning from that. I mean, that just adds so much value, and it adds to the continuous improvement. So there might be some people out there who want some additional information and might want to be able to get hold of you. How could they go about doing that?
So I try and be easy to find. I'm Dan at dannorth.net. My website is dannorth.net, which has got details of some of the stuff I'm doing. I'm running various courses, and I'm now actually an independent consultant. So I'm on Twitter as @Tastapod, TASTAPOD, via bizarre historical humorous reasons. But the easiest way to get hold of me is Dan at dannorth.net.
Cool. So. Dan, really appreciate that.
Thank you
very much.
Pleasure talking.
Nice one.
Thank you.